Good morning and welcome everyone to PAIA Training Live. It's just me, Emma, quitting here today, but I'm very excited to get us going and to host this training session this morning. Um, I'm just gonna check. Yeah, everyone seems to be coming in through the waiting room, so that's all good. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the attorneys here at Michelson's. I am a lead for the Access to Information program, which is the program we're obviously going to be focusing on today. And yeah, PAIA training lineup is kind of my baby. I've been hosting a couple of these quizzes for the last year. So yeah, very excited to get into it this morning. So today is all about access to information, and I'm sure you can agree we're in an information-run society. So giving access to information um, is one of the most important rights we have in South Africa for promoting transparency and accountability in our society. And in many instances, giving access to information is just as important as protecting it as we do under PAPIA. So, if you're new to PAIA, welcome. This session is designed to give you the essentials. And if you've already worked with PAIA, hopefully test your knowledge and see if your understanding is spot on. Um, but yeah, either way, today is designed to be interactive, practical, a little bit competitive for those of you who are competitive in the room, and hopefully not just your boring bog standard training. Um, so yeah, as I've said, PAPIA and PAIA are two focus areas or two sides of the same coin, where PAPIA is protecting personal information, PAIA enables people to gain access to it. And yeah, this legislation gives effect to the constitutionally guaranteed right under Section 32 of the Constitution, which makes it more than just a compliance tick box exercise. When you're learning about PAIA and understanding and using PAIA, it's really about allowing people to exercise their rights, which I think is really important in our society, especially. So yeah, hopefully by the end of today, you should understand what PAIA requires from your organization, the role of the information officers and the different people within your organization with regards to this legislation, how PAIA fits alongside PAPIA, and how to manage requests properly. So yeah, we're all here to learn today, to challenge our knowledge of PAIA and hopefully gain a little bit of an understanding. Cool. I'm all alone today, so if anyone can just give me a thumbs up to see that we can all see my screen properly. It should say "Welcome to PAIA Training Live" with a photo underneath. If I could just get like, yeah, okay, amazing. That's perfect. Good to know. If there's any technical difficulties, please just shout in the chat and I will be able to see and manage those. But hopefully everything goes to plan. Cool. So just some housekeeping for our session today. So the main point of today's session is engagement. It's an interactive session. Even though I'm the only one speaking, it's really there for you to participate in. So if you could please get your phones ready by your sides or a separate tab on your browser, I'll be showing you how Mentimeter works and how our engagement's going to work today. Um, and yeah, when the time comes, please use give yourself a name or any fun kind of identifier so we can see who's competing. And then yeah, the most correct answer is the right answer. We haven't made everything super simple, so yeah, there might be some tricky ones in here and there. Yeah, and I will be guiding us all through the questions. Great. So, how to participate? If everyone can please go to menti.com and then enter this code over here, 51049331. That'll log us all into this particular presentation, and then we can all start getting going with the quiz, which should be really exciting. And yeah, while everyone's doing that, if you could just give me a thumbs up in the chat once you have been able to. I can see we've already got 5 people here. I'll just waffle for a little bit while we wait for the 12 others. Yeah, PAIA is really looking pretty important this year. The regulator and all the engagements have been emphasizing the importance of understanding this legislation and practicing it correctly. So really important that you guys are here, and really exciting to make sure that everyone will be complying with it properly and hopefully avoiding the regulator at all costs. But cool. I see we've got 8 people. There's 16 in the Zoom lobby. So let's see. I'll give it another 30 seconds for everyone else. Um, just before we start, there's another person. Cool. And then how this will work is there'll be questions. I'll take us through them. And then if you could answer on your phone or on your laptop, whatever you're using this morning. And then we'll see. There's obviously a points tally, and whoever wins today can go home with some bragging rights, and maybe a LinkedIn post that you won the Michelson's PAIA quiz. All right. If anyone's struggling, please do let me know in the chat. But otherwise, I think we're gonna start. And you can always join in as we go. The code will be up here if you want to join. Great. So just to see that everyone's in, how do you feel about PAIA? You can give me one word answers. Excited is usually not one I get, but scared or confused or overwhelmed is sometimes that people sense at the beginning of the session, and that's hopefully what we're going to be fixing today. But if everyone can just give me those one words, how do you feel about PAIA? I guess a bit of a funny, like, how does anyone feel about the law? Question to be asking. But let's just see if there's any responses from annoying. Okay, great. Scared, overwhelmed, annoying, confusing, curious, intrigued. Okay, so mostly negative perceptions of PAIA, which is quite upsetting because it's supposed to be there I don't know, to help us as members of society and to like I don't know like I said, it's a constitutional right. So hopefully it shouldn't be too scary or annoying or overwhelming. Really after this, I'm sure we'll all understand the simple steps we need to do to comply with PAIA. So thank you so much for the interaction. Yeah, I see someone said not sure over there. So let's get going. Next slide. Cool. Just so I can get a sense of who's in the room today, please just let me know what's your role in your organization. Are you a legal advisor, information officer, risk manager? Okay, so we've got compliance and IT. Compliance, this is definitely your kind of ballpark. So good to know that everyone's here, information officers as well. And obviously IT, this is also in your realm. So great to know who's in the room with us today. And I think, yeah, it's an important thing for all all you guys. Cool. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. One more thing. Do you work for a public or private organization? So this is it comes up quite a bit with PAIA. Um, and there's a lot of confusion with the differential. So just important to know where we all at and what kind of organizations we're working for. Okay, cool. So mostly private in the room today. So that's good to know. All right, game time. We're gonna get into it. I hope everyone's ready. It is you do get po points for the fastest clicks as well, just in case those competitive people out there really want to get an edge on everyone else. But let's jump into the first question. Looks like everyone's ready. That's brilliant. We're gonna start the quiz. Cool. So what is PAIA's purpose? And the options are going to pop up now. Is it to support a proper functioning participatory democracy, protect the confidential information of state officials, uphold constitutional values of transparency, openness, and participation, and restrict public access to sensitive data? Okay, so PAIA's purpose is to uphold constitutional values of transparency, openness, and participation by allowing the public to gain access to information that they need to practice their rights and things like that. So that's why it's important for those values. It's not restricting public access to sensitive data, but managing rather how the public access data they need versus data that should remain confidential. So Pi is more of a management tool with that rather than a restriction tool. Sorry, I just see that can't get into the quiz. Um, if you go to menti.com, this code over here should be you should find a block where you can enter that and then hopefully join the quiz. Let me know if that's not popping up for you. It's um and then yeah, we'll see what we can do. Cool. Next slide. Let's keep going. Um 2 of 24. So quite a few questions to get through today. Who is responsible for enforcing PAIA? So who are we looking out for when it comes to complying? Is it the National Consumer Commission, Minister of Justice, the Information Regulator, or SAPS? Hopefully most people have a sense of who we should be looking out for when it comes to complying with PAIA. Great. Okay, so eight for eight there. Everyone knows that the information regulator is responsible for regulating information in general, and PAIA is obviously the Access to Information Act. So, of course, they would be the ones to regulate it. Cool. Next question. Who has to comply with PAIA? So, I know we said we're all private organizations in the room, but is it public and private bodies? Public and private bodies excluding political parties, private organizations only, or public bodies only? There's often a misconception with this question here. Great. So everyone got that right. Up until I want to say January 2022, there were certain private bodies that didn't have to comply with PAIA, and that exemption therefore fell away in 2022. So there's often kind of this perception that it's only for public bodies. But no, it is for private and public bodies, and I'm glad that all our private organizations in the room got that right. Cool. So on to question four, speedily. Um, who is responsible for compliance with PAIA? So the options are the legal team in your organization, the compliance officer, the information and deputy information officer, or sales staff. Remembering that it's the most correct answer and just in the context of PAIA itself. Um, Great, and mostly everyone getting that right. So PAIA has named the information and deputy information officers responsible for compliance with it. Obviously, your compliance officer can be designated as your information officer, so those can overlap. But according to the legislation, the information and deputy information officer who is responsible for compliance with it and will ultimately be accountable to the information regulator for PAIA. Great. Glad this is a great group. Everyone's getting these questions um right so far. So maybe I should make a note to make it trickier next time. Um or everyone's just clued up on PAIA. So who is your organization's default information officer? Um yeah, this PAIA states this specifically. And it's obviously also applicable to PAIA and the information regulator in general. Great, everyone's voted. Let's see. So we a spread of answers this time. So the compliance officer had one vote, and then obviously the head of legal and the head of organizations and the IT manager. So the head of the organization is the default information officer. This can be, I don't know, your CEO, directors, but whoever's at the top is ultimately accountable for PAIA. And that's yeah, like I said, going to be your CEO or someone, and then they can designate their duties to your deputy information officer or your DIO. So that would obviously be someone in legal or someone in compliance. So yeah, you've got your default and then your deputies. And not every organization will have a deputy if their default information officer hasn't delegated their duties. But yeah, your default is your head of the organization. Sorry, a lot of D words with that one. But yeah, really important to know because that's ultimately who's accountable for compliance. Um, Great. So we're gonna keep going. I see there's 9 players still playing. If anyone else wants to join from the Zoom call, just use the code at this website here in case anyone else has joined us in the meantime. Cool. Moving swiftly along. Who receives access to information requests? So we've said the default information officer is responsible for it, but who actually receives them? Um, and this will all tie in, you'll understand by the end how this kind of process of receiving information requests occurs. Great. So the IO and the DIO are the people that are going to be receiving and processing and responsible for responding to access to information requests. It really is their role to kind of process and take responsibility for human resources. I guess if your deputy information officer is sitting in your human resources team and it's their responsibility, then it could go to human resources. But generally it would be going to the IO and the DIO in your organization. Great. We're flying through this. This is gonna be the quickest, easiest training everyone's ever had, I hope. So we're gonna start this next question. So what is a record? We know PAIA speaks about information, but then the legislation also mentions a record. So what is that specifically? Is it personal information only, data stored in the cloud, electronic information, or any recorded information regardless of form? Um, so now we delving a bit deeper into the wording of PAIA itself, and I'm glad to see that everyone got that right. I think a lot of people, because of PAPIA and the protection of personal information, think that PAIA only speaks to personal information, but instead it speaks to any recorded information regardless of form. So it could be financial statements that have nothing to do with a person, different information about your organization that doesn't fall under personal information. So important to know the kind of the breadth of what a record encompasses. But glad that everyone does know that already. Cool. Next question. I see we now have 10 players, so that's good to know that some people got into the Menti. So what information does a requester have a right to access? So is it any record of personal information, any record a body holds, only records about government spending, or any record that is stored electronically? So what information do we have a right to? And what can we be requesting from an organization essentially? Um, cool. I see we've got 10 responses. We have a couple more. There we go. Okay, so t take our time to go through this one a little bit. So a record we said was any information that an organization holds regardless of its form. Um, so when we're saying what right do we have to this information, it wouldn't be any record that is stored electronically because you could also have a right to a physical record. Or yeah, I guess a physical record would be a paper record or something like that, somewhere from the olden days. Um, and then we said again, a record is any kind of information, not just personal information. So it wouldn't be any record of personal information, regardless of context. Also, because certain personal information will be confidential or more sensitive. So there will be boundaries on what we can request, let's say, about another person from an organization. If you're thinking about like medical records, for instance. And then yeah, the correct answer being so any record a body holds that a requester requires to exercise a right. So again, we're falling back to that constitutional standpoint where PAIA is guaranteeing the right to access to information to enable people to exercise their rights generally. So I'm trying to think of a good example here. Often in German journalism, journalists are trying to exercise people's rights to know something that has happened, and to do that, they need certain information from an organization. So to exercise this right, they're getting information from an organization there. Sorry, yeah. So just to take us slowly through that one. So we have a right to access any record that helps us exercise another right. Um, Sorry, bit of legal jargon for you this morning, but glad to see most people got that. Anyway, cool. 11 players ready. It's a good one. Let's go. Um, what are voluntary or automatically accessible records? Oh, oh no. What just happened there? Yeah, okay. Sorry. These are the technical difficulties I was talking about. There we go. Now we're back. Um, Cool. So are there records available on a website? Records that are available without having to submit a PAIA request? Records requested by email only? Or records available on demand to staff only? When we talk about voluntary and automatically accessible records. Great. So records. Sorry, I'm just checking. Looks like we've got less people right now, but hopefully everyone's still in the presentation. Um, Voluntary or automatically accessible records are records that are available without having to submit a PAIA request. So obviously the PAIA process is a very specific one. You have to use certain things that we'll get to later. But voluntary or automatically accessible records, you don't have to go through the whole spiel of following the legislation and requesting. That's more from um, a kind of if a person approached the organization and said, "Look, I need this from you." If your organization had deemed that as automatically accessible, you don't have to go through the whole review process of a PIA thing. You could just send that information to the requesters. So important to identify within your organization which records are not less important, but more easily given, and that really would reduce your load of work or processing PIA requests. Great. So let's go to the next slide. Please also, again, if anyone has any questions, the Zoom chat is there and I am monitoring it. So please feel free to let me know if you do have any questions as we go. Cool. Let's go on to question 10. Cool. So what is the key difference between a PAIA access request and a data subject access request? Now we're going into the actual requests from people. So a PAIA request is only made to public bodies. DSARs can be private only. DSAR is made under PAPIA for your own data, and a PAIA request is for any record that an organization holds. A PAIA request can only be made by lawyers or journalists, where DSARs can be made by anyone. Or a DSAR gives you access to any organizational record, not just personal information. So a bit more of a complex question, like I said, but important to understand the distinctions here. Great. So most of us getting that one right, which is amazing to see. So like we said, with this first one here is that PAIA requests can be made to public and to private bodies. PAIA applies to both, so that's why that wouldn't be the answer we give. And then um, uh, a DSAR would rather speak to personal information, whereas a PAIA request speaks to any organizational record, as we've gone through earlier. So when we talk about records, we're not just speaking about personal information. And then here, the one that most of us got is that a data subject access request is made under POPIA for my own data. So when I'm approaching an organization and I'm saying, look, what do you hold on Emma quitting? Or if I approached, let's say, Michelson's and I said, what information do you have on me as an organization? That would be a data subject access request, and that follows a different process. Whereas a PIA request is where I go to another organization and I say, look, I want to see your financial statements for 2025. So a request for not just personal information, not just my personal information, but any record from that other organization. Um, so yeah, two different things that are slightly nuanced and similar, but have different processes, and are ultimately for different things. Where DSAR is for my information from an organization, a PIA request is for any information from an organization. Great. So this is the exciting time where we can see the leaderboard and see who's really been quick on the keys and interacting the most here. So well done tonight. You are the fastest and in first place, which is amazing to see. Pat on the back for you. Then we've got Croc, Vote Goat, Eddie, Nemo, Ted, Maverick, Lola, Tobiso, and Wolfmeister leading up from the back. Hopefully this is getting everyone's competitive spirits going, and you can now see that your answers are actually having consequential effects for your LinkedIn post later. But yeah, thank you so much for the participation. There's our leaderboard for now. 8,450 points seems like a tough one to beat, but let's see if Knight is going to keep the top spot there, or if Croc or Goat is going to rise up the ranks, I reckon. Cool. So now that we see where we all stand, let's get into question 11. I see we've got 11 players ready for question 11. Um, okay, now we're getting a bit more practical with it. So what is a PIA manual? A manual for the information officer to follow in terms of requests, PIA training guide, access request report, or a document that helps requesters understand how to access records. We've all heard of a PIA manual. Now, what is this thing that everyone speaks about? Great. So six of us getting that one right. So a manual for the information officers to follow in terms of requests, that would be more of an internal document. It wouldn't be your PIA manual. You wouldn't be kind of putting that onto wherever. So let me not spoil my own questions. So a PAIA manual really is a document that helps requesters understand your process on how to access records. So the Michelson's PAIA manual would say you email a certain email address. These are the records that are automatically available. These are the records that we hold that you can have access to. This is how you get them. The time is too fast. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I'm gonna make it slower for next time. Unfortunately, I can't make it slower now. But thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind. Hopefully some of them are faster than others. So hopefully it's not too fast for all of them. But yeah, so a PAIA manual is really just setting out how do people access information from your organization. Cool. Question 12. Let's see. So what should a PAIA manual describe? And I'll read them pretty quickly. The organization's history of granting access, the records the organization must keep, the nature of records, request procedure, information officer details, etc., or how the organization collects, uses, shares, and processes your personal information. Um, the CA in answer number two being the Companies Act over there. Um, 13 responses in. Ooh, so a bit of a mixed bag with this one. So now we're speaking about, we know the PAIA manual is kind of about the process of requesting information from an organization. So what is it actually describing in it? So how the organization collects, uses, shares, and processes personal information, that would rather be your privacy policy. So when we're speaking about personal information and what your organization is doing with it, that would be described in your privacy policy rather than your PAIA manual. What your PAIA manual is going to describe is the nature of the records you hold. So, what information does your organization hold in general, not just personal information? How does a person go about requesting information from your organization? So, what is that procedure? And who are they requesting it from? So, your IO. So, really speaking back to all those answers we've been building here. So, the nature of all the records, not just your PI, your request procedure, and then how do we do it, and how do we get in touch with the people responsible for PAIA. And then in terms of the records the organization must keep in terms of PAPIA and the Companies Act, that's yeah, wouldn't be contained in your PAIA manual. Again, that's more something your privacy policy would describe. And yeah, I just threw the Companies Act in there to kind of be a little bit crazy. So yeah, those this answer here, the nature of records request procedure would be the correct answer. Cool. On to the next. Everyone is ready. Let's get going. Is it sorry, this is a statement. It is sufficient to have your PAIA manual displayed on your website, true or false? So this is assuming you well, everyone's aware that your PAIA manual must be displayed on your website. But is it true or false that that's sufficient in terms of where you must put your PAIA manual? Okay, so most people are actually going for true here, so I've caught some people out, which is good for me to know. Um, so it's actually false. The information regulator has said that your PAIA manuals need to be published prominently on your website. So that's obviously what we've said here. And you'll have noticed that most people will put that at a link at the bottom of the page. So you've got your kind of your terms of conditions, your privacy policy, your PAIA manual, or it would be in your trust center on your website. So wherever you house or your almost legal documents on your website. But the other places that your PAIA manual should be is at your principal place of business. You should have a physical copy of your PAIA manual available. So if someone wanted to walk into reception and say, I want to access information, your PAIA manual would be there with the receptionist so they could read through it. It should be available on request. So if someone were to email your IO, I'm not sure how they would get the email without the PAIA manual, but on request, the PAIA manual should be easily provided. And also, it should be uploaded onto the information regulators portal. So I hope everyone here knows that their organization should be registered with the information regulator on their e-services portal, and then you'll have your organization's page, and one of the options on that page is to upload your PAIA manual. Now, it's not I don't believe it's strictly necessary, but it is really good way of showing the regulator that you're complying and actively engaging with PAIA by uploading it onto the portal. So you have a complete portal, and then when information data subjects or any people looking on the regulator's website look your organization up, they can see that proactivity and see that your PAIA manual has been uploaded there. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of places your PAIA manual should be. One of them being your website, but the others being your principal place of business on request and uploaded on the portal. Cool. We move on. Everyone's ready, looks like. We're gonna start. Cool. So, are private organizations exempt from having a PAIA manual? Again, we're looking at the public-private distinction here. And we have private organizations in the room. So let's see. There we go. So everyone's been listening. I haven't caught anyone out. This is brilliant. So like I said, until December 2021, all private bodies were exempt from having a PAIA manual, with certain exceptions, but now everyone must have them. So everyone must, I hope that everyone's websites are showing their PAIA manuals, and yeah, etc. Like I just said. But great to see everyone got that right. Cool. I think we're waiting for two players. There's one. Um, I think we might have lost it. Oh, there we go. 11 players ready. Perfect. Cool. So which form needs to accompany the PAIA manual on your website? So there's a certain form that needs to be with your PAIA manual. Is it the Form 2 request for access to a record form, Form 4 the internal appeals Form 5 the complaint form, all of the above, or none of the above? So yeah, when we speak about a form, I'm speaking about a literal kind of document that the information regulator has put out. Cool. So caught some people out there, but yes, Form 2 is the correct answer. Form 2 is the specific request for access form. So it's what data subjects need to fill in when they are requesting access from your organization. And the regulator's been very specific that the Form 2 must be accessible on your website with your PAIA manual or kind of contained in your PAIA manual. So it's at least accessible somewhere for an a data subject. So really important to know that it's not just your PAIA manual, but also Form 2. And Form 2 is available on the information regulator's website. So if you go to you don't even have to log into the portal. I'm pretty sure it's just under PAIA and their guidance there. So that's where you would find Form 2 before you uploaded it to your own website. Form 4 and Form 5 aren't necessary to have with your PAIA manual. So great. Yeah, just so everyone knows about that. And next up, we've got a quick check-in with the leaderboard, see how everyone's going. Looks like we may have had a change of leader. No, Knights is still there in the lead. Congratulations with Croc and Eddie. Eddie and Vote Goat seeming to be neck and neck right there, but Vote Goat being the fastest, the new quickest on the keys. So yeah, and Wolfmeister overtaking Lola there down below. So exciting to see that we've got some changes of leaders and stuff. And yeah, let's see if it keeps going. Knight, you're nearly there. Cool. So next slide, question 16. All 11 players ready. What are we chatting about now? So what is a PAIA report? So lots of people know about PAIA manuals, and now we've got something called a PAIA report. Is it the information officer's report on PAIA procedures within the organization, a PAIA compliance report, a report detailing the access requests you've received, a report of all categories of records held by the organization? What is a PAIA report? Big buzzword sometime in the year. And I'm sure you've heard it before. Okay, so we've got 8 people getting that right. So a PAIA report is a report detailing the access requests the body received in a year. It's not a report of all categories of records held by the organization. That would be more in your PAIA manual. And the information officer's report on PAIA procedures within the body. I'm not quite sure what that would be, but it's not the PAIA report. So the PAIA report is a very specific kind of thing. It's done through the Information Regulators portal. There's about 10 questions that you have to answer. And even if you haven't received any PAIA requests, you have to fill out the PAIA report. It's the regulator counts what kind of organizations have been filling them in. Um, they keep note of who has and who hasn't throughout the year. So if you haven't submitted your PAIA report, you get a little X next to your organization on the portal. And like I said, the regulator is taking PAIA pretty seriously. So just it's an easy win to achieve in terms of meeting or compliance requirements is logging onto the portal and making sure your PAIA report is submitted. Um, and yeah, like I said, if you don't receive any requests, it's just zeros in those blocks. But I'll speak more about the PAIA reports as we go with these next few questions. Cool. We getting there. I think we're waiting for one more player. But I do see we've lost some people in the Zoom meeting, so maybe some people have dropped off. Um, there we go. Cool. So let's see this next one. Excuse me. So when does a PAIA report need to be submitted? Is it annually, monthly, every time I receive a request, or when registering on the Information Regulators portal? So there's a certain time period for PAIA reports. Is it every year, every month, every time you receive a request, or that very first time you log on? Great. So everyone knows that it's annually. That's great to know. Just a note for this year. So PAIA annual reports are opening on the 1st of April this year, and they close on the 30th of June. So you have that window within which you can submit your reports, and really it's takes 5 minutes. I would go as soon I would set a reminder on your calendar for the 1st of April, log on to the portal, um, submit your PAIA report and get that out of the way because it does become quite a stressful thing in that period, and a lot of people speak about it, and it really is the easiest thing you can do in terms of PAIA compliance, and shows up really well on the regulators portal as something you've complied with, so really worth doing. Great, everyone's here. Next question, and I think I might have spoiled this, but let's see if everyone's been listening. So this is a statement: you only have to submit a PAIA report if you receive access requests. So let's test how well everyone's been listening this morning. Um, I know we're a bit into the session, so let's see. I've said a lot. Um, cool. Great. So that is false. You have to submit a PAIA report, regardless. If you've received no access requests, your report would just read zeros. So it would say number of requests received, zero, number of access given, zero, that kind of thing, all the way down. So it seems a bit tedious to do when you don't even receive requests or maybe receive minimal requests throughout a year. But it's just something that has to be done, and it's easy enough. So yeah, there we are. Cool. 10 players ready. I think that's the right amount. I'll keep going. So you're an information officer who receives an access request. What do you need to have in place? A template response denying access to all records so you can provide them immediately, a process to receive, process, communicate, provide access or refuse access to records, or a PAIA manual that you can refer the requester to. So this is now you've received a request. What do you have to have in place within your organization to deal with that request that you've received? Give it 4 more seconds. Sorry, this is probably one that needs a bit more time. Cool. So, five of us getting that right, which is great. So, this is kind of after you've received a request. So, a PAIA manual sets out what people have to do to submit a request to your organization. So, after you've received one, you wouldn't really be referring them back to your PAIA manual, because that's kind of detailing how they would do that. Um, Access to all records. So you wouldn't necessarily have access to all records of your organization as the information officer, but you would have to have processes in place to be able to get that access. You also wouldn't be providing information immediately on request. There is that process of kind of looking at the PAIA and seeing whether you must give access or not, whether you can, that kind of thing. So it wouldn't be an immediate kind of thing to do. So rather, what we would need to have in place is a process internally where you say, okay, we've received a request through the information officer's email. Who does this go to? How do we process it? What am I looking at? Who do I need to communicate to? Are we granting access? Are we partially granting access? Are we refusing it? That kind of thing. So that all needs to, that your information officer needs to have that process in place. That if you receive an access request, you know what to do rather than it being this kind of confusing thing that we don't know what to do with it. But yeah, great to see that five of us got that one correct. Cool. So four more questions. We're nearly at the end. Well done, everyone, and thank you for the engagement, as I said. So you receive an access request. Which of the following is not a mandatory ground of refusal? So you've got mandatory ground of refusals, which means you have to say no. Which one of these is not a reason to say no to a request? So is it protection of reputational interests of a third party, protection of privacy of a third party, protection of commercial information of a third party, protection of confidential information of a third party? So three of these you can rely on to refuse access. And in fact, you must rely on them. It's in PAIA if you need to protect either reputational, commercial, confidential, or privacy of a third party, you have to say no. So which one isn't one of those? So a bit of a trickier question, but now we're getting into grounds of refusal, which is important. So yeah, I guess a tricky one to get. So if you have information and you say you don't want to release it because of someone else's reputation, that isn't a valid ground of refusal. If you have information and you can't release it because of the privacy of a third party, that is valid. Or it's commercial information of a third party, you don't have to release it as well. Or confidential information of a third party, you don't have to give access to it. So for these three, these are mandatory grounds of refusal. This one isn't a mandatory ground. So, say you are an organization and you hold information about organization B, and I come and say, organization A, please give me that information. You can't say, well, their reputation's gonna take a hit. I can't give it to you. That's not a mandatory ground of refusal. But if you said it's commercial information, I can't give it to you, or it's their confidential information, I can't give it to you, those would allow you to refuse. So yeah, just kind of bringing refusal and those kind of grounds into the conversation. It is pretty nuanced. But if you were looking to refuse an access request, you would have to go into either the PAIA guide the information regulator has on their website, which gives great guidance, or PAIA itself, or to us to say, can I grant access or not? So, bit of a tricky question, but really wanted to bring in that kind of nuance of how we deal with access requests when we get them. Can we say yes? Can we say no? Can we partially say yes? And what can we rely on to do so? Cool. Question 21 of 24. Seven players still in the game. I'm not sure. Eight. Oh, Wolfmeister was there for a second and then disappeared. Oh, Wolfmeister's back. Sick. Okay. Cool. So how long do you have to advise a request of the outcome of their PAIA request? So we had a lot of compliance officers and information officers in the room. How many days do you have to actually deal with this? Is it 10 days, 30 days, 90 days, or no time frame specified? Um, Hopefully we have an idea of how long this kind of process takes. Cool. So thankfully it's not 10 days. That would be quite stressful, I imagine, if you got a request and had 10 days to deal with it. And there is a time frame specified within the legislation. It's 30 days. So an information officer, once they receive a request, have 30 days to kind of instigate your process, your internal processes, see if you're going to grant access or not, get in touch with the relevant people if you are going to grant access, the whole kind of process. And then if that is going to take too long, you can extend it by 30 days. You can say to the requester, look, we can't get the information within these 30 days, but it will get it within 60 days. But yeah, that's really your time frame that you have within to work from the time the requester requests information. Cool. So just important to know that if you ever did receive a request. Home straight. Okay, 22 of 24. Couple more questions to see if we can uh dethrone Knight there at the top. So let's see. You're worried that a person might submit a complaint against your organization. How do you adequately prepare for a complaint? Ensure your PAIA manual is up to date, implement an access to information process, designate IOs and DIOs, submit your annual report, or all of the above. So what do we need to do to make sure we're complying with PAIA adequately, if someone were to complain? All of the above. Yay. So this is kind of what we've gone through today, right? So we've said we needed a PIA manual that's up to date, uploaded on the portal. So the information regulator looks at our profile and they see, okay, cool, this place has a PIA manual, they're great. We need to have a process internally. So if the information regulator comes knocking, we'll say, look, we have a process. We're doing it. This is what we follow. Kind of, I know who's responsible. You can demonstrate your compliance with PIA. So then yeah, next to your designated IOs and DIOs, you know who's responsible, so the regulator knows who to turn to if you were to receive a complaint, and those people are informed and empowered enough to say, look, regulator, this is how we comply. This is like you can address the complaint there, and then your annual report is such an easy way, like I said, to show that you've complied with PAIA and you are demonstrating your active engagement with it and with the requirements of the regulator. So great. All of the above is kind of what we've covered throughout this session this morning. Last two questions, 8 players. I think we've only got 9 in the room with us right now. Oh, 10. Amazing. Yay. Cool. Then let's see. What may the information regulator do when it investigates a complaint against you? So when they're investigating this complaint, can they refer the matter of enforcement, take no action or attempt conciliation, issue immediate fines, arrest the information officer, or provide the requester immediate access to the records. So when they're investigating a complaint, what can they do? So yeah, I guess a bit of a tricky question from me because I guess it's most correct answer, but they have many avenues they can go down when they investigate a complaint. They can refer the matter for enforcement, where the enforcement committee takes over and kind of takes action to say this is what you must do. They can take no action. They can say you've dealt with the request adequately, you've dealt with it in the correct manner, so the complaint falls away. Or they can attempt conciliation where you and the requester, who you've either, well, I would assume you've denied access to, have a conciliation that is facilitated by the information regulator. So they have that power as well. Can also provide the requester access to. No, sorry, I'm wrong. So they wouldn't be able to provide the requester immediate access to the records because they don't have the records. They would be able to issue an enforcement notice against you through the enforcement committee that says you have to provide the access, but the regulator themselves wouldn't be able to provide immediate access to the requester. Sorry, that's my bad. Bit of a bit of tricky, nuanced wording there. But cool. We go on to the final question of the day, and thank you so much for your participation and going through this with me. It's been great to go through PAIA together. Last one. So what are the consequences of non-compliance with PAIA? What are the consequences if we forget everything we've learned this morning? Is it reputational damage, information notice, enforcement notice, offense and liable upon conviction to a fine or imprisonment, litigation, or all of the above? So if we walk away today and choose to ignore, I guess, everything we've learned, what is going to happen? Literally all of the above could happen. So reputational damage, people can see through the portal and through your website whether you engage with PAIA and kind of promote access to information. So reputational damage can occur if you say no and you deal with PAIA incorrectly. If you quick Google search on PAIA, recently will give you kind of examples, or even if you look on the Michelson's website, examples of reputational damage companies have suffered because of a lack of engagement with PAIA. Information notice and enforcement notices are two things that a regulator can issue against you. Information one being kind of a warning, where the enforcement notice is telling you what you must actually do after investigation. Your information officer, like I said, is responsible, so they are liable for an offense or liable to an offense and can be imprisoned scarily or given a fine. I guess not equally as scarily. Um, but yeah, that information officer is responsible ultimately, so must know about this. And then litigation. There are possibilities to take you to court if you don't comply with PAIA correctly. So I mean, possible litigation is always quite a scary thing. So let's hope none of these are in our future because we've attended Higher Trading Live and we know what to do. So yeah, without further ado, and a bit of a drum roll from me, we'll check out the leaderboard one last time. And I think with to no one's surprise, Knight has taken it home today. Congratulations. Very impressive stuff. Your organization must be flying when it comes to PAIA. Um, yeah, and go post on LinkedIn. Go get those bragging rights. You did great, and well done to everyone else. Thank you so much for your participation. I can see Vote Goat and Eddie really had a battle towards the end there, so well done. Well done to everyone. For participating. So just yeah, after giving Knight his props or her props, any questions from the audience, you can put them in the chat below or up on the screen. I'll be able to see them. And then feedback is the food of champions. So I am going to run. Oh, I'm sure that's a word cloud. Sorry, I'm don't know my own presentation. Give me 2 seconds. Great. So I'm going to launch a poll actually in the Zoom meeting rather than in the Menti. Can everyone see that poll? And yeah, like we say, Michelson thinks always says the feedback is the food of champions. I'm always looking to improve this presentation. And one of the pieces of feedback will be that it was too quick. I'll take note of that one. But yeah, thank you so much for that. I see I'm getting some responses in there now. And yeah, please get in touch if there's anything you still are looking for when it comes to PAIA, anything that Michelson's can help you with. Obviously the program is always there and I'm always there through the program, I guess. But yeah, thank you very much everyone for your participation today. I really appreciate it and I hope you can go forth and conquer PAIA. Cool, thanks.